Hi, this is Eric Fox Jackson, and this is a tutorial on distressing text in Adobe Illustrator. So I'm just going to start by deleting this. For those of you who have actually been following me, you may notice I'm using a slightly different rig than usual. I'm on a different computer. I'm on Windows 7. I'm now using the Creative Suite 6. So I also have Creative Cloud now. I thought that would be a good investment. For me personally, it's good. I understand some people's qualms with it, but for me personally, at this juncture, paying a small amount a month for everything is a lot better for me. I'm also getting a student discount because I'm going for my master's right now. Alright, so we're going to start here. I'm using my name from the original title. I prefer to try to use thicker font for this. If you use a lighter font, sometimes typefaces like that tend to get distressed differently. I'll actually show it to you. I'll do them side by side so you can kind of see the difference. I tend to use the heavier fonts though. I'll use Helvetica LT Standard Light. I'm using Control Shift comma or Command Shift comma to resize this here. It's different. I'm on a laptop right now, so everything's not running as fast as it used to. Working on getting a new computer. My hard drive died. Alright, so what I'm going to start by doing is, now that I have this text laid out how I want, I'm going to rasterize this, and that is going to make it no longer editable in Illustrator, so you just might want to watch out for that. You probably want to try to finalize your type and your verbiage before you move forward. Make sure you do a spell check, everything like that, because that can be one of the worst things ever. So I'm going to put my resolution really low. You want the resolution to be very low, so I'm going to use the default 72, which is screen resolution. You can do other, and you can input an even lower resolution like 50. That works. Once you get to something too low, it becomes almost useless. So we're going to press OK. And if you look, the type now has been rasterized. You can see the pixelization. For those who don't understand the difference between vector and raster, vector is a series of points that connects to make lines and shapes, whereas raster is a series of pixels that that will make up your content. So it's limited by these little square pixel shapes. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to use image trace. For anyone using a version of Illustrator earlier than CS6, it's going to be called Live Trace. It's going to have still the same effect, and now the way that you edit it is slightly different. So we're going to go over here, and it's going to bring up this window. The window is a little different. The options are a little different in earlier versions. So, but you can kind of get the gist of it. I felt like the older version was a little easier to use, but that's because I was used to using it. I'm sure after I get used to this is probably a little more intuitive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn down some of the settings here to make my image a little worse. Because that's what we're going for right now. We're going for that distress style. So I'm going to change my corner values a little bit, and this should be update live. Takes a little bit because, like I said, I'm running the See, now what we're getting here is we're getting these sort of rounded corners, and that's almost reminiscent of like a poor quality printer, or a printer that's intended to print on rag paper. So what would happen would be that these rounded corners would bleed out into the rag paper, and then it would look normal. And so what we can do is we can add a little bit more noise in here, just to kind of add a little bit more distress to this. And here we're already starting to get something reminiscent of what we want. So I'm just going to close this here. In the older version, you had an option to edit the raster image and change the resolution of the raster image and resample it, which was a little better for something like this because you could resample it down as you needed. Now you kind of need to plan ahead and sample that accordingly. So what we have now is sort of the way, maybe if you were making a wood block print of this type, maybe that's what it would look like if you weren't too good with the blade. I know I'm really not. I'm going to edit these parameters a little bit more just to kind of get the effect I want. Just so you know, a lot of people are going to have different parameters. Right now I'm working in the screen mode. I'm working as a web RGB image, but if you're working with something like a print image with a high resolution 300 or 500 dpi, like I like to work in higher resolutions, this is gonna react differently to your effects that you apply to it. So I'm just gonna put the path fitting here to lower, and that will kind of follow the idea that the pixels are putting out a little less. I'm going to put this really low here. See, if you look at the S is really getting messed up. Shapes like the X, yeah, that's too low. So you'll see, I mean, unless you want something that's that distressed. Personally, I don't, so I'm going to go up to probably about 29. And once again, it's chugging away here. And I'm probably going to work with something like that. Some of the shapes here are a little messed up at the bottom of the S here. Usually that comes down a little lower than other shapes. The O, the insides are getting messed up. The counters of the O, the A, the X is coming out a little sloppy now. So this is what I want in the end. And as you can see here, you get a nice effect here at the bottom with the small text, but I find it a little more finicky to work with. Also, I just kind of like the bold text for this, because once you start really distressing it, it's going to sort of lose some of that shape. So we're going to expand this so we can have this as editable vectors, and we're just going to use the magic wand tool, or you can press Y to get the magic wand tool, and we're going to select the white or transparent, it's white, and we're going to delete that. Previously, Illustrator had an option to ignore that. I don't know if it still has that. I haven't delved as much into the options in CS6 as I'd like to. So now what we're going to do is we're going to select these objects. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm personally going to ungroup them, and I'm going to get rid of the smaller one. I just wanted to show you an example of how that would look. Some people are probably going to prefer the smaller one. A lot of people like the thinner typefaces. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select the eraser tool, or press Shift E, and this is gigantic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the brackets to resize it. You can also double click on here to resize it, and you can get different amounts of roundness, everything like that. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a little less round, and I'm going to make this brush, let's see it here. I'm going to zoom in. I zoom in using Alt and the scroll wheel. And I'm going to make this a little smaller here, and what it's going to do is it's going to give us a bit of a calligraphic shape. So when you go at an angle, it's going to be a little thicker because of the shape and the nature of the tool there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to almost simulate pock marks and bad scrapes if you were using a linoleum block or a wood block to print with. So we're just going to run the eraser through here, and sometimes it gets through all the way, sometimes it doesn't, and you'll see it's adding this little effect right here. Sorry about that. And you can just do that to the rest of the text accordingly. I'm going to press Shift E here, and you can do it at any... See, that's a little too harsh for me. Maybe you'll like something like that. Maybe add a few more angles in. And this is almost simulating as if you had, the ink didn't adhere properly, I'm going to lower the brush size here to much smaller. Get a lot of much smaller little cuts in there. And sometimes I like to even edit some of the vector points in here. So I'm going to press A, or I'm going to do the direct selection tool, which allows me to select the points specifically. See, some people might want to get rid of something like this. I personally like this little effect right there. But what I do want to change is almost the effect in here. Maybe change some of these points, bring them up, make it look a little more full. And that's about it. What you might want to do is to give it an effect like almost like it's when you use the roller to apply something to a woodblock print. And for those who haven't done woodblock printing, I feel like it almost goes hand in hand with using Illustrator. So you might want to try it just to learn more about what distressed text looks like. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to apply a gradient, and I usually just work from the default gradient and I'll just work out from there. So what I'll do here is I'll give it inherent direction, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select and put another point right in here and drag this one off, and now it's gone, and now all you have is this black and this dark gray, which will give you almost a slight effect like you've printed this, or this is like this is a more natural material. This might not show up, honestly, on the video. YouTube does compress a little bit. So if it doesn't show up, I'm going to be honest, that means it's perfect. Because if you're using a gradient to the extent where you look at it and you go, oh, there's a gradient, then I personally feel like you're using them wrong. So until next time, this has been Eric, and thank you very much.